The hypersonic phase just started, not in the skies, not on the battlefield, but inside the global financial system itself, quietly, invisibly, and far more dangerous than any missile ever launched. Because this time, the target isn't a country, it's the entire system holding the modern world together. Right now, something massive is happening beneath the surface. Global liquidity is tightening at a speed we haven't seen since 2008. Dollar funding markets are flashing red, swap lines are under pressure, sovereign debt levels are exploding past historic limits. And yet most people don't see it, because it doesn't look like a crisis yet. But make no mistake, this is how every financial collapse begins. Silent, technical, hidden in plain sight. Here's the reality. The global financial system runs on one lifeline, the US dollar. Every major trade, every oil shipment, every sovereign reserve, it all flows through the dollar. But now that lifeline is under stress. And when the world's reserve currency starts showing cracks, everything else follows. What makes this moment different is speed. This isn't a slow decline. This is escalation. Rapid, coordinated, structural, the kind of shift that doesn't just weaken an empire, it exposes its vulnerabilities. And here's the dangerous part. The system looks strong from the outside. Stock markets still move, banks still operate, governments still function. But underneath, the foundation is shifting. And history tells us, when the foundation moves, collapse is only a matter of time. Let's break it down. Global debt has now crossed $300 trillion. That's not a typo. $300 trillion. More than 3 times the entire global GDP. Governments are borrowing just to survive. Corporations are rolling over debt. They can't repay. And central banks, they're trapped. Because the only way to keep this system alive is to keep printing money. But printing money comes at a cost. Inflation. Currency devaluation. Loss of trust. And trust is everything in finance. Once trust starts to crack, the system doesn't slow down. It accelerates toward collapse. Now look at what's happening globally. Countries are quietly reducing their reliance on the dollar. Bilateral trade agreements are bypassing it. Gold reserves are rising at record levels. Central banks are preparing for something big. This isn't random, this is strategic. Because for decades, the dollar has been the ultimate weapon, a financial nuke. It allowed one nation to control global trade, impose sanctions, and dictate economic outcomes across continents. But that power came with a hidden weakness: overextension. The more the system expanded, the more fragile it became. Think about it. The United States doesn't just run an economy. It runs the world's reserve system. That means constant liquidity, constant confidence, constant demand for dollars. But what happens when that demand starts to decline? Everything changes. And we're already seeing the early signs. Treasury yields rising, foreign buyers pulling back, liquidity drying up in offshore markets. This is not noise. This is stress. Now here's where it gets even more dangerous. Because the system isn't just facing one problem, it's facing multiple at the same time. Geopolitical tensions are rising, trade wars are escalating, energy markets are shifting, and at the center of it all is money. Always money. Because behind every conflict, every alliance, every crisis, there's a financial structure holding it together. And right now, that structure is under pressure. To understand what happens next, you have to look at history. Because this isn't the first time a global financial system has reached its breaking point. In the late Roman Empire, the currency was debased. Silver content was reduced. Inflation surged. Confidence collapsed. The empire didn't fall overnight. It decayed, slowly. Then suddenly, fast forward to the British Empire, the most powerful financial system of its time. The pound sterling dominated global trade. London was the center of finance. But after 2 world wars and massive debt accumulation, the system broke. The pound lost its dominance, and a new power took its place. Now look at today. The parallels are impossible to ignore. Massive debt, currency pressure, global overreach. This is the cycle. Empires don't collapse because they are attacked. They collapse because their financial systems can no longer support their power. And when that happens, everything changes. The current system is built on confidence in the dollar. But confidence is fragile. Once it starts to erode, the shift happens fast. Capital moves, markets react, systems break. We're already seeing cracks in key areas. Banking systems under pressure, liquidity mismatches, currency volatility increasing. These are not isolated events. They are connected, because the system itself is interconnected. And that's what makes this phase so dangerous. When one part breaks, it doesn't stay contained. It spreads, like a chain reaction. This is what analysts call systemic risk. But in reality, it's much bigger than that. It's a global reset in motion. Now let's talk about what happens next. In the short term, expect volatility, massive swings in markets, sudden liquidity shortages, unexpected policy moves by central banks. Emergency interventions. Because when the system is under stress, authorities don't wait. They act fast. But those actions come with consequences. More money printing, more debt, more distortion. And each time they intervene, they weaken the system further. In the long term, the shift is even bigger. A move away from a single dominant currency. A fragmentation of the global financial order. Regional systems replacing global ones. This is not theory, this is already happening. And once that transition reaches a tipping point, there's no going back. The world will not return to the system we know today. It will evolve into something else. Something less centralized. More fragmented. More unpredictable. And that's where the real risk lies. Because stability comes from structure. And when that structure disappears, uncertainty takes over. Markets hate uncertainty. Economies struggle with it. And societies react to it. This is how financial crises turn into political crises. And political crises turn into global shifts. So the real question is not whether the system is changing. It already is. The real question is, how fast? Because speed determines everything. A slow transition can be managed. A rapid one cannot. And right now, all indicators point to acceleration. The hypersonic phase, where changes that once took decades now happen in months. Or even weeks. And once that phase begins, control becomes an illusion. Because the system is no longer being guided. It's reacting. Reacting to pressure. To fear. To loss of confidence. And that's when things become unpredictable. That's when markets break. That's when systems fail. That's when empires fall. So here's the final warning. We are not watching a normal economic cycle. We are witnessing a structural shift in the global financial system. The kind of shift that only happens once in a generation, maybe once in a century. And history is very clear about one thing. When these shifts happen, they don't end quietly. They end with disruption, with resets, with collapse, followed by something new. The only question left is this. Are we at the beginning of that collapse, or right in the middle of it?